On today's show, the Houston Rockets stay hot thanks to Fred VanVleet's insane shooting night. 37 points and 9 3-pointers. Amen Thompson makes his return to the Houston Rockets lineup and gets his revenge on Tyler Herro. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
9 3-pointers for Fred VanVleet and 9 straight wins for the Houston Rockets. What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Also, check out our Locked On Rockets newsletter. Would sincerely appreciate all of that support. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Just head on over to FanDuel.com. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. The Houston Rockets keep the win streak going. They survive the Miami Heat 102-98, thanks in very large part to the insane shooting night from one Fred VanVleet. 37 points, an insane shooting performance from him. Amen Thompson making his return. Welcome back, Amen Thompson, who had one hell of a return to action for the Houston Rockets. Got his revenge on Tyler Herro after their last meeting in Toyota Center in Houston back in December. And the Rockets as a team getting their revenge on this Miami Heat squad. Their first win against the Miami Heat since, I believe, they said since it was 2019. So it's been a minute since the Rockets have won against the Heat. And man, this was an insane game. It was an ugly game for stretches, couple of rough performances from the Rockets' star players, Jalen Green, Alperen, Sengun, struggling against the Miami Heat defense. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on, but we got to start things off with the man who flat out carried the Rockets in this game, Fred VanVleet. 37 points on 13 of 17 shooting, 9 of 11 from long distance. Went 2 of 4 at the free throw line. The whole team had shooting woes at the charity stripe. It was awful. Had 3 assists and 3 steals as well. Only 1 turnover. This was maybe Fred's best offensive performance. Certainly a season high in made threes as a Rocket. And I don't know if this game eclipses the 38 piece that he dropped on the Thunder earlier this season. I don't remember the rest of his stats from that game, but this was a game that the Rockets flat out absolutely do not win if Fred VanVleet doesn't turn it on offensively. And this was a game where Fred realized just how badly Jalen and Sengun were struggling against the Heat defense. And Fred has this ability at times where he's been able to save this team at various points throughout this season. And he's had stretches where he's able to take over a quarter or help the Rockets kind of just get back or, just stay afloat with some of his offense. And this is what it looks like when Fred is knocking down that 3 ball. He is lethal. And there was a point where Fred was really feeling himself after there was a moment where Amen Thompson forced a turnover under the rim after what was I believe a missed shot, made shot, whatever it was. I think it was a missed shot. Forced a turnover under the rim, got it out to Tari Eason. It was kind of like a scrambling little play. And then Tari, I believe, was the one who was able to whip the pass out to Fred VanVleet, who was wide open to drill his 6th 3-pointer of the game. And then on the subsequent possession right after that, Fred VanVleet called his own number and was like hunting the right man in the pick and roll. I think it was Duncan Robinson that he was hunting, got the screen that he wanted, drove right, hit the step back, and then got there at the 3-point line and drained his 7th 3 of the night. This was just, Fred was on a heater. he couldn't be stopped. At one point in the first half, he hit that insane like moonball three over Kel'el Ware. And Ware is tall and has a lot of length. And I had no idea how Fred was able to get that shot off over Kel'el Ware, but this was just an absolute shooting clinic from Fred VanVleet to help lift the Rockets in a game where Jalen didn't have it offensively, Alp didn't have it offensively, and the team was still a little frazzled at points, right? They still turned the ball over a little bit, and it was not a pretty game by the Rockets' usual standards, but Fred was able to step up in a really, really big way and knocking down all those huge shots. He had 13 of his 37 in that fourth quarter, and I believe he had the Rockets' first 9 points of the fourth quarter were all Fred VanVleet. He quite literally took this game over by himself. And I'll give a lot of credit to the guys who were involved in creating opportunities for Fred, because Fred doesn't do all this by himself, right? Shout out to the Rockets screeners. Shout out to Adams. Shout out to Sengun. Shout out to Amen Thompson, Tari, Eason, Dillon Brooks, even a little bit. All the guys that were involved in setting screens for Fred VanVleet and getting him open. And especially, I will say, even though Alperen and Sengun struggled, Ime Udoka made sure to highlight after the game that Alp, even though he didn't have it offensively in this game, he was being used as a decoy because the Heat were still so focused on making sure that he couldn't hurt them that when Alp was the screener, they were dedicating so much attention to slowing him down that it was generating open opportunities for Fred VanVleet. And it was a nice kind of course correction by Fred, because in the early going of this game, in the first half, the Heat were going under on a lot of screens, and it felt like Fred wasn't really taking advantage of some of those opportunities, and the Heat kept doing it in the second half of this game, and that's where Fred made him pay, and he absolutely torched them. This was just an absolute insane game from Fred, and when he has it going like this, it is really fun to watch him just bombing 3 after 3 after 3 with nothing that the Miami Heat could ultimately do about it. So shout out to Steady Freddy for holding it down in this game. But he wasn't the only one that was a contributor in this one. Amen Thompson made a triumphant return to the Rockets lineup and absolutely got his revenge on Tyler Herro. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about how the Rockets adjusted in the second half after giving up a 20-point quarter to Andrew Wiggins. And we'll talk about the struggles for Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun in this one. We're going to get to all of that and more here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Look, I'm Houston born and bred. I went to the University of Houston. I am a Cougar through and through. So I'm going to be pulling for the UH Cougs in the NCAA tournament. They're taking on Gonzaga. It's going to be a awesome game. That's who I'm pulling for. But whoever you want to root for, whoever you're paying attention to, go stay in on the action. Tournament games are happening almost every day. There's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com for your chance at $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Today's episode is also brought to you by Upwork. Look, scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and so much more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. You can find the right talent. They have fast and easy hiring and cost-effective growth. So instead of hiring full-time, you can help find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com, UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. And you know what? We usually reserve this for when the Rockets beat good teams, and it feels a little rude to do it when a team is now riding a 10-game losing streak. But you know what? Based on what happened the last time these two teams played,
Release the hounds.
release the hounds, go do a drive-by, head on over to Locked On Heat on the YouTube comment section and let them know that Locked On Rockets sent you by. Go talk your talk over there, because you know who absolutely talked his talk in this game? Amen Thompson, who went band for band with Tyler Herro and just dominated him. My God, this was, it was so satisfying. Watching Amen Thompson absolutely own Tyler Herro in this game was more satisfying than watching him ragdoll him across the Toyota Center floor. So let's start with the guy who absolutely stunk in this game, Tyler Herro. Finished with 8 points on 3 of 11 shooting, only attempted 1 3 and missed it, had 3 rebounds, 4 assists, and 6, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, 6 turnovers in this game. On the other side of the aisle for the good guys, Amen Thompson had 18 points on 8 of 14 shooting, was 2 of 3 at the free throw line, had 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 7 steals, and a block shot. And he was all over Tyler Herro in this game. My God, it was brutal. You could, do not, if you are an NBA player, you do not want to get on Amen Thompson's bad side, because he very clearly remembered what happened in the last meetup between these two teams. He very clearly remembered getting into it with Tyler Herro, and he didn't lose his cool. He didn't get angry. He didn't throw like a cheap shot at Herro or any of that. He just mopped him up on the court. And it was fantastic to see. There were so many moments where Amen just absolutely wrecked Tyler Herro in this game. He straight up ripped him multiple times and went the other way for easy buckets. He had that one where the Rockets got a defensive stop and got the outlet pass out to Amen Thompson, and the dude was just gone immediately, like dropped it into like 5th gear, 6th. I don't know anything about cars. Whatever the fastest gear is on a car, and just took off. And Tyler Herro was the only one between Amen Thompson and the Heat basket, and Tyler Herro just gave up and got out of the way, and Amen got up and dunked it so hard that he fell down after he dunked it. That's how hard he got up and dunked it. Oh my God. I think my flat out favorite he had the one where Tyler Herro drove his Amen Thompson's one block in this game. Tyler Herro drove, got past Amen Thompson, thought he had the easy layup, and then Amen Thompson just absolutely erased his shot from behind. Like he had no idea the block was coming. That was a great moment, but easily the best one, the absolute best moment from this game for Amen Thompson. He did get to taunt Tyler Herro a little bit in this one. And that was when he drove from the top of the key. Steven Adams was doing one of those like Steven Adams screens where he's just like kind of camping in the middle of the paint and using both himself and the opposing big as like a big wall for Amen Thompson to get by, kind of like a pseudo screen. There's a name for it. It's the why am I blanking on it? It's the Gortat screen. There we go. And Amen Thompson got by Tyler Herro, like shook him, got by, went up with the left hand, finished it. And then I believe Spoelstra immediately called a timeout after that play. And Amen Thompson hit Tyler Herro with the, look at this guy over here. Look at this guy over here. I felt so much vindication watching this game. I felt vindication for Amen Thompson watching this game, especially with all that smack that Tyler Herro was talking after the last game between these two teams. That post-game quote that he had where he said, after the altercation, he goes, guess that's what happens when someone's scoring, throwing dimes, doing the whole thing. I'd get mad too. And shout out to a good friend of the program, Dave Hardesty, aka Clutch Fans, who came back with that exact graphic and posted the stat lines for both Amen Thompson and Tyler Herro side by side. Because my goodness, like this, between these two, Amen Thompson just flat out dominated Tyler Herro in this game. He was active. He was disruptive defensively. He was rebounding the ball. He was scoring. Just seriously, welcome back, Amen Thompson. Like there's nobody on the roster that can do what he does. He finished a ridiculous team high plus 20 Amen Thompson was plus 20 in a game that was decided by, well, let's be real. The game was actually over. The final score is a little deceptive. I apologize. I should have mentioned this earlier. I was just way too excited and wanted to talk about Amen Thompson embarrassing Tyler Herro. But the final score is not indicative of where this game was actually at. The Rockets had a 10-point lead with about 60 seconds to go before the Heat hit a couple three-pointers. I guess the first one you can say did count and kind of mattered. So realistically, the Rockets beat the Heat by 7, I'll say, because Davion Mitchell hit a three-pointer in the corner with just under 60 seconds left to play. And the Rockets called a timeout and 7-point lead with just under 50 seconds left to play. That's still a ball game. That's still real. And then Dillon Brooks actually had a really bad turnover on the next possession. So the Heat were kind of in it, but then Sengun had a really clutch defensive possession where he blocked another attempted three by Davion Mitchell. And then Bam Adebayo hit a three-pointer with no time left on the clock and banked it in. It was a terrible shot. And that three really didn't matter. So the Rockets won this game and they did it. They were able to lock down on defense in the second half of this game. Before those back-to-back threes within the final minute that, again, really didn't matter in the grand scheme of things, up to that point, they had held the Heat to just 12 points in the fourth quarter and only 33 points in the entire second half. They gave up 27 in the first quarter. They gave up 32 in the second quarter, and of those 32, Andrew Wiggins had 20 of them. The wildest 20-point, most random 20-point second quarter ever from Andrew Wiggins. But then they were able to tighten things up in the second half, only allowed 21 in the third quarter. And then again, throughout that fourth quarter, only 12 points up until those final 2 threes went down for Miami. So a much better defensive performance from the Rockets. Again, and Ime talked about this post game. It really just felt like they just weren't tight enough on Andrew Wiggins in the first half, and in particular that second quarter where he just went off. He got some open looks that he probably shouldn't have gotten, where guys just lost track of him. And Andrew Wiggins is not a bad player. In fact, he's a very, very high quality NBA player. And the moment you let a good player see a couple shots go down, the moment that happens, it's really easy for a guy to get loose and then start knocking down everything that he throws up, right? And that's exactly what happened to Wiggins in that quarter, because after he knocked down the first couple shots, the first few, didn't matter what the Rockets were throwing at him defensively. Didn't matter if it was Dillon Brooks, Tari Eason, Amen Thompson. He was cooking everybody. And then it sucked that he capped off that 20-point quarter. He was going to stop at 17, and then Dillon Brooks had just a completely awful contest right before halftime with literally no time left on the clock, fouled Andrew Wiggins and gave him 3 free throws to close the half that led to him capping off what was supposed to be a 17-point quarter, and then it turned into a 20-point quarter. I guess it could have been a 20-point quarter if he knocked in the 3, but I don't think that shot was going in with or without the foul. But just it was a bad defensive performance by the Rockets in that quarter. And some of that was due to losing Wiggins, but I also think some of it had to do with some of the matchups that were out there. And this was actually one of the first games where it kind of felt like the Rockets' double big lineup wasn't as effective as it's been in previous games. I want to talk about that, as well as the struggles for Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun in this one, plus any final thoughts that we've got. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Daylight savings kind of snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. There's basketball madness going on right now. You're trying to catch every single game that you can get your hands on from the tournament. Maybe you just need a little bit of on-the-go convenience, right? If you're traveling, if you're going to games, all that kind of stuff. That's what 5 Hour Energy can help you with. Head on over to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your doorstep. Need one now? Grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They are everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, couple stats that really stood out from this game that helped the Rockets, and one that really kind of hurt the Rockets in this one. First one that hurt the Rockets was after, a couple really strong free throw shooting games, the Rockets just went right back to being the worst free throw shooting team in the NBA. 10 of 21 from the charity stripe in this game. It's like the Rockets channeled all of their ability to put the basketball in the basket directly into Fred VanVleet, and then nobody could hit free throws. Amen Thompson just 2 of 3, so he missed one. Alp went 0 of 4. Fred missed 2 free throws, which is kind of wild given how hot he was everywhere else from the floor. Jabari Smith Jr. missed a couple free throws, and then Steven Adams went 0 for 2. So the Rockets as a team, 10 of 21 from the charity stripe, which is really unfortunate given how closely contested this game was for much of it. I mean, they had to battle back in that third quarter from an 11-point deficit, and they took control there in the fourth, and in large part due to Fred's insane offensive performance, but then obviously the defense tightening up in the second half helped a ton. But in a game where it was tightly contested for a majority of it, and again, the Rockets' largest lead was only ever 10 in this game. Hitting more of those free throws would have been really helpful. But where the Rockets did give themselves some cushion and gave themselves quite a bit of a competitive edge was first on the offensive glass. They were crushing the offensive glass. It's what this team has done all season long. They dominate the rebounding department. They dominated the rebounds 46 to 34. And then they had 15 offensive rebounds to just 5 offensive rebounds by the Miami Heat. And that led to 23 second chance points to only 8 second chance points for Miami. So even though Miami was also trotting out the double big lineup with Bam Adebayo and Kel'el Ware, those guys were not nearly as effective on the glass as Alperen, Sengun, and Steven Adams were. And also a lot of credit to Tari, Eason, who crashed the glass, Jabari with 6 rebounds, Amen Thompson with 9 of his own boards. The Rockets' bigs and the wings absolutely took care of rebounding the ball and generating those second and third chance opportunities, and that gave the Rockets some cushion. But the other area, too, that really stood out in this game was the defense turning into offense. And that's something that the Rockets have done all season long, but sometimes it's hard to rely on, right? If you're not getting defensive stops, that the other team is just knocking down too many shots, if they're making contested looks, if you're not forcing turnovers, if you're not getting out and running in transition after getting stops, then it's hard to sometimes capitalize on your good defense. The Rockets forced 21 turnovers in this game that led to 24 points. And surprisingly, I thought the Rockets were going to actually get off to a much better start because Miami was just caught. Miami had so many unforced turnovers in this game, especially there in the first quarter. I think they either finished with 8 turnovers or 9 turnovers in the first quarter. I can't remember which. It was at least 8, maybe 9 after that first quarter. And I want to say about 3 or 4 of them were just completely unforced errors. But on the flip side, the Rockets themselves also had 15 turnovers, and some of those were unforced as well. There was there were a handful of turnovers from Tari Eason, who led the team with 4 turnovers in this game. And at one point, I think it was after a set of back-to-back turnovers, Tari had just turned the ball over, and the Heat were kicked ahead the pass, and they had a 4-on-2 power play going on, and Dillon Brooks was one of the 2 Rockets that was back trying to defend, and the Heat just completely overshot a pass to, I think it was Tyler Herro in the corner, and DB immediately, as soon as he realizes the dead ball, he immediately turns around, and you couldn't quite make out what he said, but I'm pretty sure he went, "Tari!" And then he put his hands up, and he was like, chill, just relax. And so sometimes Tari can get a little hectic with it, a little chaotic with it, but again, that chaos generally leads to good more than it does bad. And so you don't want to tell Tari too much to rein it in, because that's just who he is. And that energy, that excitement, Again, that chaos really leads to good things for this Rocket team, especially defensively, but sometimes he can get a little overeager on the offensive side of things. But those are some of the stats that really stood out about this game and kind of tells the tale of the game a little bit here for the Rockets and how they were able to hang despite the fact that, they had the 37 from Fred and they had 18 from Amen, but that was kind of it. I mean, they got 11 from DB and 11 from Jabari off the bench, but then everybody else in single digits. And again, Jalen and Sengun were really struggling in this game. A lot of credit to the Miami Heat defense. Even though they're riding a 10-game losing streak, even though they have just woefully underperformed this season, the Heat are still a really good defensive team. And you could see that on display in this game, when they were running out their zone defense, whether they were playing in man coverage, it didn't matter. They did a really great job making the Rockets stars uncomfortable. And honestly, after we just talked about in our last episode, some of the things that are going to, be difficult, especially for Jalen Green in the postseason, the ball pressure was evident in this one. Like, Davion Mitchell did a really good job of making Jalen Green uncomfortable with the basketball, even though Jalen only had, I'm getting my numbers mixed up. I'm looking at the wrong stat line. Even though Jalen had 0 turnovers in this game, Davion Mitchell did a really good job of making Jalen Green uncomfortable, preventing easy driving lanes, limiting Jalen to kind of settling at times for pull-up, like long-distance pull-up twos was like the only thing that Jalen could, felt like that he could generate consistently in this game. For literally first play of the game was a Amen Thompson to Jalen Green alley-oop lob. And that was, so after that first play, Jalen only hit 2 more buckets the rest of the way. And I think one of them came at the end of the first quarter where he hit that step back where his foot was on the line. So it was a really, really long 2, which means that he hit 2 shots in the first quarter and only 1 the rest of the way. Really, really tough game for Jalen offensively. But at the same time, he didn't turn the ball over. And because the Heat had to commit so much defensive attention to him because they put one of their best defenders on Jalen Green consistently, it kind of freed up Fred VanVleet to do the damage that he did. And by the time the Heat decided that they were going to throw Davion Mitchell on Steady Freddy, it didn't matter. He was already in the zone and there was nothing that could be done about that. So for Jalen, this was probably a really good test of what it's going to feel like in the playoffs when you have a team that is giving you that much defensive focus, that much pressure. I also think that similar to Fred, there were a lot of opportunities for Jalen to maybe pull up and knock down some perimeter shots. Unfortunately, he went 0 for 4 downtown in this game. And, we've seen other games where Jalen starts off, 0-4, 0-5, or really struggling from deep, and then kind of gets into a rhythm, over the course of the rest of the game, and then he kind of finds his 3-ball later on. But because the Heat did such a good job from preventing him from getting downhill, from finishing, from, slicing through their defense, they really packed the paint with, their double bigs with Bam and with Kel'el Ware in there. And their point of attack defense was really solid. It was just a really rough game for Jalen. It wasn't rough like Tyler Herro rough with all the turnovers. And at no point did it feel like Jalen was going to shoot the Rockets out of it. And especially once the entire team realized just how hot Fred VanVleet was, Jalen was more than willing to step off to the side and let Fred do his thing. And that's exactly what you got to do. But Ime kept him in the game. He still played good defense. He still grabbed some rebounds. He was still kind of a decoy offensively at times because the Heat still had to keep track of him and make sure, hey, we're not gonna suddenly, just because you had a bad first half or a bad start to the game doesn't mean we're gonna let you get a bunch of freebies. And sometimes that's what you got to do as a star player, right? If it's not your night, teams are still going to treat you like the star player. They're still going to put their best defender on you, and they're going to clamp you down or try to. And that's what happened with Jalen, but the Rockets were still able to put up enough to do it thanks to Fred's big night. And then same thing for Alperen and Sengun. Alp really struggled in this one. 8 points, 4-14 shooting. He was 0-4 again at the free throw line. He was getting it done at other places on the floor. He had the 10 rebounds, had 2 assists, 2 steals, a couple blocked shots, including that big one at the very, very end where, who knows what could have happened. If Davion Mitchell hit that second 3 at the very, very end, and he's been shooting lights out ever since putting on a Heat jersey, if he had hit that second 3, it would have been a 4-point game with about, 30-ish seconds left, maybe 40-something seconds left, and that would have been more than enough time in a 4-point game for the Heat to mount some kind of a comeback, even though it felt like the Rockets had a firm grasp on closing out that game. We know just how how things went the last time these two teams played. So big block from Alpi at the end there, still doing his work on the glass, still getting it done in a couple other ways with the steals, with the assists, but the inside shooting, man, he was really struggling. He had a bunch of shots kind of, rim in and out and then just not go his way. And you could tell it was really kind of getting to him. It kind of became mental, I think, a little bit as the game went on. And one thing that really kind of bugged me, in this game, both kind of for Alp, but also like at the same time, it's kind of, there's only so much you can do, right? Is there was a lot of fouling that like Kel'el Ware especially was getting away with on Alp because he's skinnier, lanky, and I think skinnier, lankier guys, similar to like smaller players, are kind of able to get away with a little bit more as far as grabbing, holding, fouling without it being called. And Alpi was definitely getting frustrated by the lack of whistles that he was getting down low, having guys hacking his arms and stuff when he was trying to make his move, when he was collapsing the defense. But there were a lot of plays that started or kind of began the initial action with Alpi with the ball in his hands, and then led to a kick out, and then like the ball gets swung around the perimeter. So, I think we could look at the stats after this game, and they're not, NBA's not updated yet, but I'm sure we'll be able to go back and see that, outside of the 2 direct assists that he got, there were probably some hockey assists in there, and I'd have to go back and rewatch the tape, but it felt like there were some really, especially in the second half of this game, felt like there were some really good offensive possessions that started with Alperen Sengun just touching the ball in the middle of the floor or commanding a double team somewhere and then getting rid of the basketball and getting it out to the perimeter, where then it gets rotated and the Rockets find a shooter, or they get it to a cutter, or somebody gets to attack off the bounce, and it leads to a good offensive possession for the Rockets. So it was a rough night for the Rocket Stars, a combined 7 of 28 shooting, but your stars aren't going to have it every night. And generally, they have it more often than they don't. That's why they're your star players. That's why Jalen and Sengun are the number 1 and number 2 offensive option for this team. But on a night where both of your stars didn't have it offensively, Fred VanVleet stepped up in a huge way, and Amen Thompson was able to put in just enough. And then DB and Jabari, Tari, Adams, everybody was able to do just enough to be able to get this win over the Heat. One other note that I did have in this one that I wanted to share very quickly. This is the first time that the double bigs, I think, have posted a negative plus minus in their time together on the court. They finished this game a -6. And I don't know if it's because specifically if it was Kel'el Ware. I don't know what it was. The Miami Heat do a really good job moving without the basketball. And there were some moments where with the double bigs out there, like somebody, like I think it happened once or twice where like, a cutter for the Heat got behind Alperen Sengun defensively, or they put the Rockets in rotation, especially it was in that second quarter, especially where Andrew Wiggins was cooking, where the Heat just did a good job of moving the basketball around, getting the Rockets kind of rotating, and some hard closeouts where then it's really hard to recover to get to the next man. And the Heat did a really good job moving the basketball and kind of attacking that double big lineup. And that's what led to it being a net negative for the first time, I think, ever since the Rockets have started using it. It finished a net negative with -6. So it was just a weird matchup for it, and probably not the right team to have the double big deployed. In fact, this was a game where I really felt like Jabari and his length actually fared a lot better against Kel'el Ware than any of the other Rockets bigs. He was like kind of the perfect matchup to try and hold Kel'el Ware, although Ware had a really phenomenal game. 16 points, 14 boards, 7 of 10 shooting. Like, he was solid. But on the other side of it, Steven Adams in the non-double big minute, and even in somewhat in the double big minutes, Steven Adams did a really phenomenal job matching the physicality of Bam Adebayo, held Bam to just 6 rebounds, and only 6 of 13 shooting overall. Just really good job making Bam feel uncomfortable and not giving him anything easy. And again, when you're Bam and you're already a little bit of an undersized big and you're having to try and move the brick wall that is Steven Adams for rebounds, for positioning, for a shot, trying to beat him off the dribble, is really hard. And so I think Adams did a really solid job in this game, and Udoka, leaning on him for stretches without Alperen Sengun, because Sengun was kind of struggling in this one. So overall, really good win for the Rockets, 9th straight. They bring it back home next Sunday against the Denver Nuggets. Maybe Jokic plays, maybe he doesn't. He's been missing a few games as of late. I selfishly kind of hope he does play, because I really want to see the Rockets beat a healthy Denver Nuggets team, win their 10th straight, and further cement their positioning as the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. But I want your thoughts from this Rockets win against the Miami Heat. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Remember, the best way to help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Also, check out the daily Locked On Rockets newsletter. Would sincerely appreciate all of that support. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.